Good evening, everyone. This is a special council meeting of the City of Joliet. Excuse me, on December 17th, 2020. We've been here every night this week, so I'm getting, getting confused here. Anyway, we're here to discuss the Rethink Water issue, and we're going to have a couple of presentations here this evening. And the Honorable Mayor Rob Oderkirk will be presiding over the meeting.
We'll begin with roll call. Mayor Oderkirk.
Here.
Councilwoman Gavin. Here. Councilman Tugg.
Here.
Councilman Landy. Here. Councilman Morris.
Here.
Councilman Mudrin.
Here.
Councilwoman Coleman.
Here.
Councilwoman Reardon. Here. Councilman Turk.
Here.
First on the agenda this evening is citizens to be heard on agenda items. There is no one here to speak, but we do have one person that registered to be called, and I believe we have Michael on the line. Michael, this is Krista from the City of Joliet. Can you please state your full name?
My name is Michael Roth.
Michael, you may begin your comments. You have a 4-minute cutoff.
Okay, thanks. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council, and ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for the opportunity to speak this evening on this important matter. My name is Michael Roth. My address is 2300 Cabot Drive in Lisle, and I'm an attorney representing the Southland Water Agency. I speak to you tonight because if you're only considering alternative water source plans from Chicago and Hammond, your deliberations would exclude consideration of a plan that would save Joliet hundreds of millions of dollars. Hundreds of millions. The Southland Water Agency was established in 2019 to develop and operate a sustainable, cost-efficient, and high-quality water supply for the Chicago Southland region as an alternative to continued dependence on the city of Chicago. In its relatively short lifespan, Southland has established direct access rights to Lake Michigan and executed 50-year water supply contracts to 14 South suburban communities, totaling about the same water usage as Joliet's. In fact, Southland was one of 5 finalists Joliet picked in January of 2019, followed by a unanimous recommendation from the Joliet Environmental Commission last November, endorsing the Southland approach of building an independent system to Northwest Indiana. For nearly 3 years, and with considerable effort and expense, Southland worked with Joliet to develop a framework for a cost-effective and viable proposal to deliver raw Lake Michigan water to Joliet near the state line. Under the Southland approach, Joliet would construct all remaining infrastructure, including its water treatment plant, thereby retaining complete control over the water quality delivered to your residents. Southland's plan would enable Joliet to purchase raw Lake Michigan water in Illinois at a delivery point 15 miles closer to the city. It would eliminate Joliet's need to purchase or lease property in Indiana. It would reduce Joliet's capital cost by as much as $332 million. And it would save Joliet at least $250 million in water costs over 50 years. Under the Southland proposal, Joliet would have no land acquisition, operation, or maintenance responsibilities in Indiana. Now, why is Southland here, and why does Southland care about Joliet's water supply? Because of the tremendous savings that can be shared by all with a single regional independent lake water supply. Joliet has already acknowledged the economy of scale cost savings of forming a water commission with Will County communities to share the massive infrastructure costs among more water users. The same holds true if more water users share the cost of raw water facilities between Lake Michigan and the Illinois-Indiana state line. And with Southland, Joliet's raw water costs would be guaranteed for 50 years. Joliet would retain full control over 75% of the total system costs. And Joliet can govern as a water commission if it so chooses, just as the DuPage Water Commission does. Despite these advantages, and after months of collaboration, Southland was advised by staff only 3 hours before your November 19th meeting that its proposal would not be presented to the City Council. We were given no opportunity to address issues or respond to questions. We also had no opportunity to negotiate agreement terms, as was apparently afforded to Chicago and Hammond, which are the only alternatives now in front of the City Council. We're generally perplexed as to why, after being the unanimous choice for an alternative water source, discussions with Southland were abruptly ended, and why we so far have been denied an opportunity to present our plan to you. which is why last week Southland's Executive Committee sent a letter to Mayor Odekirk and City Council members asking you to hear directly from Southland, the same as you will hear from Chicago and Hammond, and to include Southland in your deliberations. A full and transparent process would include the Southland plan and the advantages it offers, and it would best inform the City Council and public regarding this very important alternative for the future of Joliet and neighboring Will County communities. We hope you'll agree that it is in the public interest to consider all legitimate, credible proposals such as Southland's for this crucial decision, especially when an option is from an agency whose mission and purpose is closely aligned with the City of Joliet. Thank you.
Thank you. Allison, he mentioned staff. Would you like to chime in on this?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So the staff and the consulting team have, appreciated the interest of the Southland Water Agency in participating in the alternative water source program. We've always been committed to a completely open and transparent process, and every alternative that has been under consideration has been examined in that fashion. We have met with Southland Water Agency on a number of occasions and have reviewed material that was provided by the agency as recently as October. And the proposal that was provided was that they would sell raw water to Joliet. So while the agency has provided us with information, they've been unable to provide us with the information that we felt we needed to determine that the agency is a viable alternative, and in order to make us feel comfortable with the cost estimates that have been stated. So examples of several key areas of concern include the public-private partnership that has been proposed to construct and finance the infrastructure in Indiana. We have been unable to evaluate the business terms of that arrangement because we were not provided with the complete development agreement with that entity. We've only been provided with a pre-development agreement that had key information redacted. We have not received sufficient information from the agency to evaluate the proposed route for the transmission main and the location of the intake and the shore facilities. That has been done with the Chicago and the new Indiana intake alternative. We've had preliminary agreements that we have negotiated that have been executed. And so those, level of security that we have with those alternatives is not on the same level as what has been proposed by Southland. As you all know, our key goal in this program is driven by the need that we need water by 2030. And we have all understood that it's very important that Joliet be confident that that can be achieved. Southland Water Agency is not driven by that same goal. The risk of having insufficient water to meet peak demands, as their current members are seeking to transfer to a different supplier and currently do have a reliable water source. So for these reasons, we are not presenting Southland Water Agency as a viable alternative for the new Indiana intake alternative.
Thank you.
That concludes our citizens to be heard on agenda items. Next on the agenda is a presentation by the Director of Public Works, Allison Swisher, on the review of Joliet water source alternatives.
Well, Mayor, Council, it is a pleasure to be here tonight. We have been, working on this program now for almost 3 years, and I'm, very excited to come here tonight to present the information that we've been working on since we last met in November, and also have presentations from our proposed partners with the City of Chicago and the City of Hammond. So before I get started, just introduce myself again. I'm Allison Swisher with the Director of Public Utilities for the City of Joliet. With me today, I have our project team, the project managers, Teresa O'Grady with Crawford Murphy and Tilley, Joe Johnson with Stantec, and then special legal counsel on the project, Ms. Barbara Adams. So just really quickly, I know we have a lot to cover tonight. I know it's been a long week for everyone. So we have 2 hours allotted for the workshop, so I want to be respectful of everyone's time. We're going to start off. I'm going to be giving a presentation on the comparison document. This is the document that was is on everyone's table. It was emailed to everyone last night, and it will be posted on the city's website, the project website tomorrow. So previously, what we've been talking about is each of these alternatives as a standalone option. And really tonight, we're going to dive into really looking at how those two alternatives compare. So that is the goal. Then, as I mentioned, we have a presentation from our two potential partners in this program, first from the city of Chicago, and then from the city of Hammond. And then to wrap up the meeting, we're just going to talk about next steps in the selection process. Okay, so I know we've seen this slide many, many times, but it's always important when we start this to remind ourselves of why we're here and why we're doing this. So the city's existing water source, the deep sandstone aquifer, is being depleted, and it's going to not be able to meet our maximum day demands by 2030. This program is not an option. It's something that we have to do. And so since 2018, staff and the project team have been exploring all potential alternatives to solve this problem. So there's been a lot of work done in 2020. I'm not going to rehash all that was presented back in November, but I do kind of want to focus on what has been happening since then. So at the November 19th workshop, we presented the two prospectus documents, and as I mentioned before, this is presenting each alternative as a standalone option. Since then, we've been really focusing on doing a lot of public outreach. We have hosted two live events for the public forum, and then also we've been having an ongoing virtual event on the city's website. The city council members were able to participate in two tours. One tour was in person at Chicago's Eugene Sawyer water purification plant, and then we've also conducted virtual tours of the Central Lake County Jawa water treatment plant in Lake Bluff, which most closely would mimic the treatment plant that we would construct if we selected the new Indiana intake alternative. We've made significant progress as far as the preliminary agreements. The city of Hammond unanimously approved the preliminary access agreement on November 23rd, and the city of Chicago unanimously approved the preliminary water supply agreement yesterday on December 16th. And then lastly, we've been discussing a lot about the Lake Michigan allocation that we need to obtain for either alternative, and we are going to be having that pre-hearing on Monday, December 21st. So there's been a lot of work that's been ongoing just in the last month.
Allison, real quick,
Yes.
for the ongoing virtual event, the online event that's been extended, what kind of feedback are we getting or participation are we getting on that?
Yeah, so we've received about 80 comments and questions. So we're really hoping that after tonight's meeting, there might be, the word might get out even more, which is why we wanted to extend that event. You know, we've been really trying to reach the public, even with, COVID and the restrictions due to the pandemic. So, we've had a lot of really good feedback from our residents, but we just really would like to hear from more people.
And at some point, will you share those comments with the council?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, I will definitely share all that information with you.
All right, thank you.
Okay, so I just want to point everyone's attention to this little booklet, which is our comparison summary. And this looks, it's about 16 pages. So we really tried to boil everything down into something that really just hits the high points of what we've been doing. So small brochure, a lot of time, a lot of information. So this again will be posted on the city's website tomorrow for the public to read. But this is going to be the focus of what I'll be discussing tonight. So as we've been discussing all year, we are looking at two water source alternatives. And while they will both provide Lake Michigan water to the city, there's some very key differences. With the Lake Michigan water, Chicago Department of Water Management option, we will be purchasing water from the city of Chicago and then conveying that water about 31 miles to Joliet, where it will be distributed to our residents. On the other hand, the new Indiana intake alternative, with that, we will be constructing an entirely new system and utilizing an access agreement, not a purchase agreement, but an access agreement with the city of Hammond to bring that water, the raw water, to Joliet, where it would be treated and then distributed to our residents. So the comparison document basically takes information that's previously been provided in the two prospectus, as well as the basis of design, and kind of really puts it side by side so you can really start to compare the two alternatives. There's 3 sections. The first section provides an overview and then also talks about the similarities between the two alternatives. After that, we start to talk about the key differences and where you start to really differentiate between the two alternatives. We've utilized a positive, neutral, and then unfavorable assessment of these. And so it's important to note that these assessments are qualitative in nature. So if you have a favorable assessment on one area, it doesn't necessarily balance out with an unfavorable one. On the last page of the booklet, we talk about other considerations. And there's really just a number of items that cannot be assessed, and we'll never really be able to assess them fully before the decision is made. So just before I start, I also wanted to state that within this document, there's not a recommendation for either alternative, so it shouldn't be construed that that is what this document is doing. So we always kind of go back to our strategic plan, which has been guiding us throughout this entire program. And within that plan, we identified a mission, and that mission had 4 key criteria. That is, this new water source has to be sustainable, it has to be reliable, it has to be a high quality water, and it needs to be implemented by 2030. And so when we look at the two alternatives, the bottom line is that both achieve this mission statement. We evaluated them to see if they could meet these requirements, and they do. As I mentioned earlier, they share many similarities. So both will provide Lake Michigan water to Joliet. Both will require obtaining a Lake Michigan water allocation permit. Both require entering into a long-term intergovernmental agreement. Both do support a regional solution and the formation of a regional water commission. Both require construction of significant significant infrastructure, and then both require significant capital investment and then rate increases to support that investment. They both require transferring the source water from our groundwater to the lake water source. And lastly, they just both require significant stakeholder support, and that includes the public, our potential regional partners, regulators, local governmental officials, and as well as our state and federal legislators. So at the November 19th council workshop, there were a lot of questions related to how the projected average monthly water bills would compare to other Lake Michigan communities. And so we put together this chart to hopefully answer that question. And so what we did is we looked at over 100 communities that utilize Lake Michigan water, took their current average bill, and then projected that to 2040, utilizing a 5% increase, which is the industry standard. And so as you can see, by projecting that, the projected rates for Joliet would be slightly above that average in 2040, but would be nowhere close to what the highest amount that a community is paying. So we hope that this answers that question that came up, at the meeting. The other question that was asked at the last workshop was related to, what if we just didn't do the program? How would this compare to what our rates would be anyway? And I just have to say again, we must proceed with the alternative water source program. Doing nothing is not an option. However, it's important to recognize that water rates would increase over time regardless of implementation of the program. So again, assuming that 5% industry standard, we projected what Joliet's rate would be out to 2040 without implementation of the program. And the takeaway here is that you have to consider those increases over time. And the rate is not tripling. I think we've heard that a lot, the rate's tripling. Really what would be, it's less than double after you take into account the need to increase rates anyway over time. So now I'm going to really dive into the comparison, and this is where we start to differentiate between the two alternatives. So I just want to quickly review some of the key features. So for the Chicago Department of Water Management alternative, we'll be purchasing Lake Michigan water from Chicago, utilizing Chicago's existing infrastructure. And that existing infrastructure is shown in the black dashed line. So this includes the Eugene Sawyer Water Purification Plant and the South Tunnel System. The finished water then will be pumped 31 miles to Joliet and then distributed through 23 to actually 30 miles of additional transmission main. And the capital improvement costs range from about $600 million to $800 million, depending on if we go with the Joliet only 30 MGD or the regional scenario. So in contrast, for the new Indiana intake alternative, we'll be obtaining Lake Michigan water via a new intake utilizing the right-of-way in Hammond, Indiana. And we will again have that access agreement with Hammond to utilize the right-of-way. The raw water is then pumped 46 miles to Joliet, where it will be treated at a advanced water treatment facility located in southeastern Joliet. After treatment, it's then conveyed an additional 27 to 35 miles to our residents at a cost of about $1 to $1.4 billion. So the first decision criteria that we're going to look at and compare the alternatives for is risk to schedule. And so in November, we had stated that the implementation plans that have been prepared, show that both can be completed by 2030. And we do know that both will be challenging to complete in that time frame. However, the bottom line is that there's a greater risk to schedule for the new Indiana intake alternative, given simply the magnitude, complexity, and interstate construction for that alternative. Now we're going to start looking at some of the different costs. So for the implementation costs and the resulting debt burden, both of these alternatives again require significant capital expenditure, approximately $600 million for the 30 MGD scenario for Chicago Department of Water Management, and approximately $1 billion for the 30 MGD new Indiana intake alternative. So the bottom line is, both are costly, but the new Indiana intake alternative requires significant infrastructure and capital expenditures that results in a higher debt burden for the city. So this chart shows the average monthly water bill for a Joliet customer. And it puts the two different alternatives side by side. And as you can see, they're fairly similar. However, the Chicago Department of Water Management alternative is 4% lower during that time frame that we have done the financial forecasting for, which goes to 2040. So again, the bottom line here is that during that 20-year planning period, the Chicago alternative would result in a lower impact to an average Joliet water bill. We've talked a lot about the regional opportunity with building this system. And so we've always presented this and looked at a potential for a regional solution. There's many benefits to this. We could share costs as well as risk amongst a larger customer base, and that would happen regardless of the alternative. So as you can see, kind of that ghosted, very lighter coloring is what the 30 MGD alternative would be. And you can see that for both alternatives, the 60 MGD reduces the impact to the average water bill for a Joliet resident. However, there's a greater opportunity with the new Indiana intake alternative to lower that cost further due to the economies of scale that is associated with capital improvements versus purchased water costs. So this chart shows the annual cash flow requirements for the alternative water source program. And so when you think about what goes into the total cost of water, there's multiple components. In the blue color, you have the purchased water purchase costs or the access costs. And then in the pink or orange shade, you have the debt service, and that funds the capital improvements necessary. And then in that gray color is where you have the operation, maintenance, and replacement costs. So these two charts really shows the fundamental difference between these two alternatives, purchasing water versus owning your own system. So during the period of debt repayment, which is 2030 to 2065, the average annual cash flow is very similar. However, in 2065, after the debt service is paid off, the annual costs for the Indiana alternative are significantly lower. And we, thinking about this in more simple terms, it's like having a mortgage. You get a mortgage and you have 30 years to pay off your mortgage, and every month you pay that bill, but then once your home is paid off, then that bill goes away. However, when you do own your own home, you have all the costs associated with operating and maintaining your home. And so you can see that difference between these two alternatives when you think about putting it in that perspective of owning a home.
Ellison, on that slide,
Yep.
can you go back for a second? Just so I'm clear, the 2078 on the 30, on the slide on the left, you have it 98.8 million. Slide on the right's 38.9. That would be the cost to run the system, estimated cost?
That's correct.
Okay. It's not per year, is it?
That's per year.
Okay.
After retiring the debt.
That's correct. For both alternatives, the debt would be retired.
Bob, 27.8 is about the year I can afford to retire anyway, so.
This chart is one that, really then takes all the annual costs and then adds them up for that 50-year period and then brings them back to, present day, taking into account the time value of money. So as you can see, there's about a $100 million difference in the present value. So while in that short term, which is during that period of debt repayment, there's not a significant difference between the alternatives. However, after that debt service is paid off in 2065, that annual cash flow for the Indiana intake alternative becomes significantly lower. So throughout this process, we've really tried to reduce all of the uncertainties surrounding the two alternatives. And there's just some factors that are outside of our control that we, just don't know what might happen, despite our best efforts. So we've looked at what the greatest risk to future cost is for each alternative. And for the Chicago Department of Water Management alternative, we've identified the cost for the purchase of treated water as being the greatest risk. So that chart there shows the potential increases that would impact long-term and ongoing costs related to purchasing water. For the new Indiana intake alternative, the greatest risk is associated with the potential for higher than expected capital costs. And again, that chart, shows what would happen if, for example, the construction costs came in 25% higher than we are currently anticipating in the baseline. So the bottom line here is that there's a greater sensitivity for increases in future costs with the Chicago Department of Water Management alternative.
Say that one more time, please.
In looking at this, you can see we looked at a baseline scenario. And so for the Chicago Department of Water Management alternative, we assumed that water rates would escalate at 2% per year. However, we also looked at what if they would escalate at a lower rate, potentially 1.3%, or at a higher rate, which is 3%. And you can see from the bars there that there's, if the water rates would escalate greater than what we're currently assuming, there would be a significant cost addition to the overall program. Okay, another major category for decision criteria is control. I think we all mostly understand, when we're talking about this program, what control refers to. But for the Chicago Department of Water Management alternative, Chicago would control the supply and treatment, providing Joliet an opportunity to provide input via the advisory council, while Joliet would have control over the transmission and distribution. With the new Indiana intake alternative, Joliet would have control over supply, treatment, transmission, distribution, as well as then, future rate setting. So the bottom line, when we think of control, is that Joliet will have greater control with the new Indiana intake alternative. The converse of control is responsibility. And so with the Chicago Department of Water Management alternative, Chicago would be responsible for the source water protection, water treatment plant staffing. With the Indiana alternative, Joliet would have that responsibility and a liability associated with water treatment. So while we believe that Joliet is capable of operating a surface water treatment facility, it's still more responsibility than what the city currently has now, maintaining its wells. So the bottom line, when we look at operational responsibility, is that with the Chicago Department of Water Management alternative, Joliet would benefit from the water treatment expertise of Chicago and would not have the responsibility for operation and maintenance of supply and treatment facilities. Another decision criteria is reliability and resiliency. And for this, we looked at factors that could interrupt the supply of water to Joliet and the region. So these factors include the ability to meet future demand, the risk associated with a source water contamination event, the ability to treat for emerging water quality contaminants, and then just the risk of a failure in an infrastructure. So the bottom line is that there's greater reliability and resiliency with the new Indiana intake alternative due to the infrastructure being brand new and having advanced treatment capabilities. So that is the conclusion of the comparison section, and we do wrap it up in the little booklet with a overall summary. So all those bottom lines I mentioned are kind of summarized here, so you can really just look at them side by side. I won't read through this slide, but when you have the opportunity to read the document, I think this provides it all summed up on this one page. So in those previous slides, we had addressed multiple decision criteria. However, there's other decision criteria that should be considered in the selection of this alternative water source. However, they cannot be easily assessed. Many of these are subjective and open to the opinion of, or feeling of the individual. So for public support, as Mayor Odekirk mentioned, we are extending the public comment period through January 19th. So far, the public comments we've received, there isn't a significant, input one way or the other regarding the two alternatives. Regarding political support, our advocacy team has done a great job of doing outreach to state and federal legislators. And, again, from those discussions, there has not been, any objections expressed to either alternative, but we'll definitely, keep you informed if we find out any more information in the upcoming weeks. We mentioned this.
With either program, what is the timeline necessary to sign up to get the water by 2030?
For a regional partner or for?
Well, on either alternative, obviously we have to make a decision fairly quickly, right? Because we're running out of water.
Yes.
So in your opinion, would you have 6 months to make up your mind, a year to make up your mind? How long before we have to make a decision there and pick one or the other?
We're doing that in January.
You're doing that when?
In January.
Okay, well, that answered my question. And not to overly simplify, but it's leasing a car opposed to buying a car. You're either leasing the Chicago facility and they have to maintain it, and when you buy your own car, when it breaks down, you gotta fix it.
Yes, there's a lot of parallels between, thinking about
Right,
either.
if you simplify it to the average person, it's leasing or buying. A lot of people lease a car, they don't want to bother with the maintenance because it's all done for them. Other people buy a car and say, okay, I gotta fix it myself, so.
Yeah. And another consideration we've been talking a lot about is just the support of our potential regional partners. And as we've mentioned previously, we've done a lot of outreach to those communities, and there's some communities that say it's more favorable for them to be on the Indiana alternative, mostly due to their geographic location. So, but overall, there is not a significant number that would push it one way or the other. But we are continuing to do that outreach as well. And, you know, another thing to consider is just the relationship with the potential future partner for the water purchase or the right-of-way access partner. And that's what, you know, we have invited Chicago and Hammond here tonight to really, hopefully, you know, convey to you, you know, their commitment, you know, to the program. Lastly, there's just many uncertainties that, you know, exist, and there's things that we are just, you know, never going to know prior to making this decision. You know, what are future regulations going to be? You know, you can't predict that 100 years from now, you know, what future legislation might be. And so really, we've, you know, tried to address all of those concerns, but there are just, when we make this decision, going to be some things, you know, we just won't know. So just really wanted to wrap it up, this conclusion here. You know, I know this is a really big decision for all of us. It's one that no one is taking lightly. You know, this selection of an alternative water source is probably the most significant and costly decision that, you know, we make. And, you know, we feel that providing you with the prospectus documents, the basis of design, the multiple workshops we've had over the past 3 years, that we've really done this really openly, transparently. We've really provided everyone on the council with the tools to, you know, make this decision, you know, with the most information that is possible. So we have
You and your team put this all together? You and your team put this all together?
Yes.
Fantastic job, amazing.
Thank you. So we have a lot of thank yous. Thank you very much to the City of Chicago and the City of Hammond. We spent countless hours with them this year, reaching these agreements, which we think are fantastic agreements for Joliet. Both of them are really win-wins for everyone involved. Thank you very much to the residents of Joliet who have engaged in this process. We've had a number of residents who have been very involved, and we've definitely appreciated all the input that we've received from them. Our potential regional partners in the Will, Grundy, Kendall County areas, you know, had a lot of input with them with our monthly water planning group meetings, and really excited to move forward with the formation of that water commission. And then just thank you to the city council. We've spent a lot of time on this issue, and I really appreciate all the attention that you have put into making this decision for the city. So with that,
Well, I'd
any
like to add
questions?
the water commission.
And the water commission.
We can't forget the water commission. They did a lot of work for 2 years.
They did a lot of volunteer work on this.
If you own the system, is there a way of selling the water to other surrounding communities and make money off of that?
So we've talked with potential regional partners, and the benefit, it would be for everyone to reduce costs. So we don't see it as, you know, selling water and making money. We see it as a benefit for all of our residents to pay less on their monthly water bill. So that's why we're proposing the formation of the water
And that'd be
commission.
people around in surrounding Joliet areas, well, not just Joliet, right?
That's correct. If there's any other questions, I can answer them now, or we could wait to the end. So whatever.
Ben?
Yes, I'm sorry, go ahead.
First of all, I did read the information that you sent us, and I do appreciate the bottom line on all the pages. And I did read the public question comments. There was quite a few, I think it was 7 pages. And I agree with you. No one was really adamant about one or the other as far as source, but they were very excited about it being
Yes.
Lake Michigan water.
I should have said that.
Move on that.
Yeah, I should have said that. The comments we did receive were all of them very positive about just being excited about Lake Michigan water. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Next on the agenda is a presentation and discussion by the City of Chicago. Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot will begin the presentation.
Good evening, thank you for coming. Welcome to Joliet. Great to have you here, Mayor. Thank you.
It's my pleasure. But couldn't you get a little shorter podium? I feel like I need a little box to step up on. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure to be here in Joliet with you. I'm not doing this. All right. Good evening, Mayor Odekirk and the members of the Joliet City Council. I'm thrilled to be here to discuss our proposal to provide water to the great city of Joliet. I am Mayor Lori Lightfoot, the mayor of the city of Chicago. I'm also glad to see many of you again after our tour of the Chicago's, I think, amazing Eugene Sawyer water purification plant, the 8th largest water treatment plant in the world. And that's alongside our Jardine water purification plant. Excuse me. Our Jardine water purification plant is the largest in the world, a fact about which we are very proud. This is all to say that the city of Chicago is home to a world-class water treatment, supply, distribution infrastructure designed to support our regional partners. For those of you who could not make the tour, we prepared a short video overview of Chicago's water infrastructure that would serve the city of Joliet, and hope you enjoy it and look forward to speaking with you more once it's over. Can we roll the video?
The City of Chicago Department of Water Management is responsible for one of the largest drinking water systems in the world. Every day, we purify and distribute almost 1 billion gallons of high-quality drinking water to over 5.3 million people in the city of Chicago and 120 regional communities. Chicago's purification plants draw Lake Michigan water from one of 2 active intake cribs. These cribs are located 2 miles off the shoreline and pull water from 25 feet below the lake's surface, so no surface debris is sucked into the system. They're also located far from sources of any industrial shoreline pollution, ensuring good and reliable source water quality. Located on the shores of Lake Michigan, the Eugene Sawyer Water Purification Plant is the 8th largest in the world. With a total capacity of 720 million gallons a day, Sawyer is well prepared to safely and reliably supply water to Joliet. Chicago has a $150 million capital improvement project that will increase the capacity of the Sawyer plant to 1.2 billion gallons a day and restore the plant to its record ranking of 2nd largest in the world. Over the last 10 years, Chicago has invested over $200 million at Sawyer in order to create a top-of-the-line, modern and efficient plant. But we are not stopping there, with an additional $200 million in investments planned over the next 5 years. Significant recent and planned improvements include a new chlorine building, new filter controls, switchgear, chemical feeds, backup generator buildings, and filter under drain replacements. The system is monitored by brand new $15 million state-of-the-art microbiology and chemistry laboratories, which perform over 90,000 analyses of compliance samples every year. These improvements will ensure Joliet residents have safe, quality Lake Michigan water from a reliable system. The Department of Water Management is also a leader in cutting-edge water research and is proactive in ensuring that we can meet the demands of new industry challenges. This includes sampling for emerging issues such as PFAS in source water, which testing has shown to be undetectable in our water. For the connection to the city of Joliet, water will travel from the Sawyer plant to our southwest pumping station, where Joliet will build its new water infrastructure. Directly west of the station is Durkin Park. Almost 10 acres in size, this is the future location of the underground suction well. In addition to world-class infrastructure, Water Management has the most qualified staff in the region with a depth of expertise that is unmatched. The department has over 2,000 employees working 24/7 to provide high-quality drinking water in a reliable, efficient, and sustainable manner. They stand ready to support Joliet in building this new infrastructure and transitioning their residents and businesses to the new system. This staff includes 81 engineers, 26 chemists, and 6 microbiologists. Of these engineers and scientists, 17 have advanced engineering or science degrees. 19 are licensed water operators, and 9 are licensed professional engineers. 150 of our staff are detailed full-time to Sawyer Plant, and at least 56 staff are on duty 24 hours a day system-wide. These include a chemist and 2 engineers on call to handle any water quality issues within the system. Through our ongoing capital investments, cutting-edge research, and state-of-the-art technology, and our renewed commitment to regional collaboration through the Advisory Council and AWWA rate-setting methodology, Chicago has secured its place as a leader in the water industry internationally. Our world-class infrastructure, operated by highly trained professionals, produces the highest quality drinking water, which consistently exceeds industry, state, and federal standards. We look forward to a continued and fruitful partnership as we provide water to Joliet and the region.
Thank you. Developing this partnership was one of the first agenda items that we undertook when I assumed office last year. And as my staff can attest, I directed them to devote every resource to this intensive process in a relatively short amount of time. I strongly believe that access to clean, affordable water is essential to our region's strength. And I consider it my personal mission to work with our partners across the region to make water as safe and affordable as possible. In truth, it's a big reason why I've made this priority because of our larger vision to work with our regional partners and work together toward our many shared goals and values. Whether it's water, economic development, transportation, or a response to COVID-19. I have a personal track record of reaching out beyond the borders of Chicago and partnering with regional mayors and village presidents to collaborate on issues that cut across geography boundaries. Whether it's our regional working group on COVID-19 or our economic recovery regional partnership, we are and must be part of each other's shared success. That is, in my view, the path forward. Let's also share why the Chicago water system, in my view, is second to none. As those who visited the Sawyer plant saw, and you saw a highlight of this in the video, we applied the best industry practices to purify our water. This has led us to win 8 awards for water quality since 2000 alone, including the 2018 Sustainable Water Utility Management Award from the Association of Metropolitan Water Agencies, and the best tasting tap water from the National Resources Defense Council. We're so serious about the taste of our water that we even have our chemists include a smell test as they test our water every day to assure that nothing is amiss. This entire process begins with the waters of Lake Michigan, our region's greatest natural resource, which we aggressively protect against pollution and spills by aggressively holding polluters accountable. And unlike other systems which draw from Lake Michigan, our intakes, as you saw from the video, are miles offshore and not located near any sources of potential pollution like operating or legacy steel mills. This fact alone sets Chicago apart. In addition, we have a vast water safety infrastructure to ensure that our water not only tastes good, but is in fact safe. The scope of our operation, as you've seen, is vast. Our water department has over 2,000 staff members, including 81 engineers, 26 chemists, and 6 microbiologists. Our laboratories alone employ 43 staff members and conduct over 90,000 water quality tests per year. We have chemists on duty 24/7 to conduct tests to ensure that our water is of the highest quality, and we test every 15 minutes, every day, without fail. In other words, if you choose Chicago, you choose a proven, reliable, and state-of-the-art infrastructure to ensure continuous provision of water to cities like Joliet and our other regional partners. We have never, let me repeat this, never had a large-scale water outage due to operational emergencies. But this partnership, and the reason why I'm here, is about more than simply water delivery. Part of what I want to do with this partnership is change the way our partnerships have worked in the past. In other words, I want to change the way that we've been doing business with our regional partners. The changes made in this proposal reflect that. We have you, the city of Joliet, to thank for making that happen. Now, to be quite blunt, in the past, the general attitude from Chicago wasn't as collaborative as it could have been when it came to terms or customer service. Frankly, we in Chicago had to learn the hard way that we need to place renewed emphasis on customer service and transparency that gives our regional partners a voice in how our system works. That means transparency in rate setting. And as I said a moment ago, a big reason for the changes that we've made is because of the level of our engagement with you and the feedback that you've given us along the way. By working with Joliet, we dramatically improved the terms to where they should be, which is terms that not only benefits both of us, but the entire region as well. As an example, take our WWA rate setting, a transparent methodology that will apply to all regional partners. Under this model, you only pay for what you use through a clear national standard for rate setting, which, by the way, is the same rate setting methodology used by other large cities like Dallas, Philadelphia, Detroit, and Austin, Texas. We will also have an advisory council, which all of our direct regional partners can join, giving you and them access to financial, capital, and operating information related to the water system, and allowing partners like Joliet to make recommendations to our water management on all aspects of operations. These measures would not have come without your input and collaboration. We have since reached out to our largest customers to include them in this regional partnership, and the response has been overwhelmingly positive. Now, folks, before I close, let me allay some concerns that I have heard about Chicago, and I'm just going to put these issues on the table. Number one, we will never, ever sell our water system, period. How can I say that with such certainty? Here's why. First, selling an asset is valuable and essential to the health and well-being of every resident in our city would be a disastrous, bad decision. It will never happen as long as I am mayor. Second reason, the residents of Chicago would never let such a foolish proposition happen, and here's why. You'll recall that cities all over the country, led by Chicago, would sell off municipal assets to deal with budget shortfalls. The most disastrous of these deals was also a Chicago deal, the sale of our parking meters, which happened some years ago. It was a terrible deal from the very beginning, and it remains a terrible deal that is a burden on our city. The problems with that deal are well known in the city of Chicago. It comes up all the time. One of the first things that I tried to do when I became mayor was to see if we could reshape the terms of that deal to better benefit our city. Unfortunately, we cannot. But coming out of that experience, there is no way that anyone in Chicago has any appetite for selling a single other municipal asset, least of all, one of our most important assets, which is our water system. Third reason why our water system will never be sold is because our obligations to our bondholders prevent that from ever happening. So the bottom line on that issue is the Chicago water system will never be sold. I also want to address any concerns that you may have about future rates. If we are fortunate enough to win your confidence and you agree to partner with Chicago, our agreement on rates will not only be transparent, but it will be memorialized in an ironclad contract. Some of you know that I'm a lawyer by training. I spent a lot of my life litigating contracts that were ambiguous, that were vague, that were subject to interpretation. I believe in making sure that when we enter into a deal, the terms of the deal are transparent, they are clear, and they were memorialized in unambiguous terms. That's exactly what we would want for an agreement with the city of Joliet. I believe in the term, put it in writing. It will be plainly documented for all to see, no bait and switch, and that's how we lock in certainty around rates. And let me be clear, we want your business, and we do not want rates to be an issue that prohibits that from happening. So, what I would ask is this: I hope you will give us due consideration. We are here because we believe in the possibilities for this partnership. I am here as mayor of the city of Chicago, bringing with me the full weight of my city council, who's fully cognizant of this deal and have given their stamp of approval for us to be able to move forward in discussions with you. We want to make this happen, in part because, of course, we want your business. But as I said from the beginning, and I mean it to be true, we believe in regional partnership. We believe that the partnership that we could have with the city of Joliet will be one of great value to both sides. And just by virtue of these conversations that we're having with you, other regional cities around this area have reached out to us and asked how they can start the discussions with the city of Chicago. And that is because of the process that we have been through with you. So we're grateful for that as well. What do you get if you partner with the city of Chicago? You get my commitment. You get a partnership that will work for you. You get a network built on world-class water quality for your families, for your businesses, your parks, schools, and more. Here in Illinois, the place we all call home. With one unparalleled depth of experience, institutional knowledge, and expansive infrastructure. You won't ever be on your own when it comes to ensuring to your residents that they have the access to the safest and highest quality drinking water in the region, bar none. You don't have to worry about any environmental issues, but you will be able to depend on clean, safe water for your residents. Let's take our partnership further. And you in Chicago, our partners across the region, can rest easy knowing they have water that is always monitored, always safe, and always of the highest quality. I genuinely appreciate your time and your consideration. And at this point, I'd like to welcome my colleague, Deputy Commissioner Andrea Chang from the Water Department, who will elaborate on the city's commitment to water quality. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for your time and attention. I greatly appreciate it. Andrea?
Thank you, Mayor Lightfoot. Hello, everyone. At the City of Chicago, we are always thinking and worrying about water and all the ways that we can better ensure the best, safest, most reliable water for our 5 million customers. Let us do the worrying so that you don't have to. Well, that's what Chicago brings to the table. Unending passion for drinking water quality, reliability, cutting-edge research, and the cumulative experience of almost 180 years of successfully running a water utility. We are a national water research leader. I myself have a PhD in civil engineering, and many of our staff have advanced engineering and science degrees and an alphabet soup of water-related licenses and certifications after their name. We have an on-site pilot plant used to test potential changes to our treatment process, including testing the use of ozone, an advanced treatment process. We also proactively test for emerging contaminants, such as hexavalent chromium, PFAS, and microplastics, even in advance of federal requirements to do so. This historical data allows us to conduct in-depth research to monitor trends in changing water quality. Most recently, the Illinois EPA conducted additional PFAS sampling and found that even at the sensitive levels that they're testing to, Chicago's water was below detection limits. We found that the key to excellent water quality is not only having an effective treatment process, but also protecting our source water. Therefore, we draw from a point in Lake Michigan far from shore and far from industrial pollution, where the water is cleanest. And it's our duty to protect public health by aggressively responding to those who would threaten our source water. There are polluters that regularly dump hexavalent chromium, cyanide, and mercury into some parts of Lake Michigan. And we are currently in litigation with a steel manufacturer after they spilled 298 pounds of hexavalent chromium into Lake Michigan in northwest Indiana and threatened the entire region's water supply. Hexavalent chromium in particular isn't removed and can even be worsened by certain types of advanced treatment. As a result, aggressive protection of Lake Michigan is the only cost-effective solution to heavy metal contamination. And we are always ready to respond to a contamination event. We have a 10-step source water emergency protocol to respond to all water quality threats in Lake Michigan. And we have an ice-breaking boat and trained engineers on call 24/7 that can be deployed to spill locations. In fact, our emergency response protocol was published in a national journal for leaders in the water industry earlier this year. Further, our infrastructure has significant redundancy. Sawyer has 9 low-lift pumps, and our smallest pump could provide Joliet's entire single-day demand in the 60 MGD scenario. Sawyer has 3 different power sources and large standby generators that provide more than enough power for continuous plant operations. The residents of Joliet and the 5 million other residents who rely on Chicago for water won't ever notice so much as a blip in their water service from the city. For our proposal to Joliet, we also believe that if needed, we can exceed the construction timeline to ensure that water is flowing well before 2030. So in closing, you can rest easy knowing that Chicago's 113 water engineers and scientists are up 24/7, 365, worrying about your water so you don't have to. And with that, I'll hand it back to Mayor Lightfoot.
Thank you.
We're happy to take any questions. I neglected in my excitement to get going to introduce other people in our team. You've met our Water Commissioner, Randy Connor. You just heard from Deputy Commissioner Andrea Chang. And we have also with us the Chief Financial Officer for the City of Chicago, Jenny Bennett, who can answer any questions about rates or numbers. So if you have questions, we are happy to take them at this time.
Well, thank you. Again, I want to thank you for coming. You answered my question that we talked about last week about the possible sale or not of the water system. I just want to point out for the benefit of the council and the public, when we first met about a year ago to discuss this, you vowed in that meeting, private meeting, that you were going to change the approach the city of Chicago would take to the regional partners and others in the region. And you definitely have followed up through on that and kept your word. So I want to thank you and definitely rest. If there's any questions on the council, I think that the commitment the city of Chicago has made through this process has been very impressive. So thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Any questions?
I do have one question, Mayor.
Yes.
There was a statement made during another presentation that if there is a contaminant say upstream, for lack of a better word right now,
Yeah.
if we were to go with you, that you would not be responsible for that. It would come down to the city that you are selling the water to. So how would we rectify that?
I'm not sure that I'm familiar with the point, but I'll defer to the Deputy Commissioner to answer your question.
Okay.
Thank you, yes. So you're saying if there was contamination upstream of the suburb that we were, the regional partner we were selling to?
Correct.
So that would mean that it came from either our source water or, our treatment process. So usually whatever, regulations we're beholden to, our regional partners are beholden to as well. So, we actually provide some of our sampling data to our regional partners, mandatory every year, so they can produce their consumer confidence reports. Those, reports that are mailed out every year by the utilities. There are some sampling that is done on their own, but a certain core amount of sampling is provided by us as well. So, anything that will be a problem for a regional partner will be a problem for us, and we don't get violations. So, I couldn't do that to my 5 children and the water that they drink from the city of Chicago. Yeah. Does that answer the question?
Yes, thank you.
I think Jenny Bennett will add to.
Hi, good evening. I'm Jenny Bennett. I'm the CFO. I think also in addition, you were probably asking about what we have in our contract as it relates to some of the liability provisions. And the way that that works is that we are responsible for the water up until the point at which we have our point of demarcation. And then after that, then the city of Joliet would be responsible for water thereafter. The other option, my understanding is that it would be a responsibility of Joliet overall, and hence some of the responsibility versus control issues that were discussed earlier. And so there's slightly less, is, how we see that, but we are responsible basically up to that point of demarcation.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Other questions?
Quick question, ma'am.
Yes.
So referring to the point of demarcation, just to clarify, and for those watching, there's, citizens Joliet, we're talking about the suction pump that we'll build. Beyond that, if something were to happen, the liability would fall on us.
Right, so I think that the bottom line here is anything, as I understood the councilwoman's question, and if I'm wrong about this, please correct me. If something happens, for example, in Lake Michigan, and there's an issue, that responsibility falls on us. We are responsible for anything from the intake to pushing it out through the point where then the Joliet system would take over. But we're responsible in the first instance. I think that's what you were getting at.
Thank you.
Okay. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
What I do, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
Following up with Councilman Corbin, Your Honor. So have you all experienced anything like that happening after what did you call it, the demarcation, or after Joliet takes over from that pumping station in any other instance? Or do you all have any other instance where you all have, sent water as far as Joliet, where something can happen?
Well, I will refer the question to the expert. Andrea, or Randy, do you want to address it?
Good evening. We've never experienced that where, once the water has left our pumping stations, that there has been a problem. But the greatest part, though, is that because we partner with the other people in the region, we're in constant communication with them to talk about their testing protocols and how they're testing water and what they're seeing in the water once it gets there. Because we're sending water so far to certain people, there's a certain chlorine residual that has to stay within the water. And we have to also make sure that we're concentrating on the blended phosphates to coat the pipes and ensure that that's in the system as well. So it's a constant communication between our partners as well as our engineers. And if there's ever an issue, then our engineers respond immediately.
Thank you.
Anything else?
And if I could just add, part of the reason why we place such great emphasis, we talked to you about this at the tour, in the video, and in my remarks about the amount of redundancy that we have in the system, the amount of chemists, engineers, the amount of testing that happens every single day, every 15 minutes on a daily basis, because we want to make sure there are no problems. Because in the first instance, if there's a problem, the Sawyer plant from which the Joliet water would be drawn also serves the city of Chicago and our residents. So we have a vested interest over and above to make sure that everything that flows through the Sawyer plant and then comes out to our residents, to our customers in the region is safe. That's why we have so much emphasis on chemistry, microbiology, and we've got all of these subject matter experts with degrees beyond my even capacity to know, to make sure that our water system is safe. We take that very seriously because it means something to us as Chicagoans as well as our regional partners. And obviously, if we weren't holding up our end of the bargain, we would not have, regional partners, but more to the point, we would hear about it in the city of Chicago first and foremost.
Thank you.
Any other, questions or comments?
I do, Mayor, if you don't mind.
Yes, go ahead.
And I think probably, this would be more of a question for your, expert, for the PhD lady, sorry,
happy to
Andrea,
yield the
Andrea. I saw that in 2018, they were sued for, putting hexavalent chromium into the water. How do you get rid of that, and how long does it stay?
You know, the best solution is to never let it get in the water in the first place,
Of
honestly.
course, but-
You know, and once it is in the water, you know, it can dissipate depending on where it is. It can also accumulate in the sediment, you know, depending on where it is. Really, best practice, I think they would say, would be reverse osmosis for completely getting rid of hexavalent chromium. The levels that they're talking about regulating to are very small. And so really to be sure that you were getting below those, you know, potential regulations, it's not, hexavalent chromium itself isn't regulated yet, would probably be reverse osmosis.
And that would do it?
Yeah, it's a bit of overkill, but it's really the only thing that you could do to effectively remove hexavalent chromium.
So if I may give her a little bit of a prompt, I think what the councilwoman is asking is, how do you make sure that even if something happens and there's some bad actor that's out there, that our water system remains safe, so that we're not pumping any dangerous water through our plants, to our residents, to our regional partners?
Yes, thank you, yes. And of course, I'm thinking
She's reading my mind tonight, that's good.
Yes. And I'm thinking in the scenario where you actually even let it get to your intake. You know, part of what we do, and I have multiple staff that go out on our boat, when we've had those incidents in the past, we have a GPS grid. We are monitoring to see if it's coming towards our intake. Should it get anywhere near our intake, we're gonna shut that down and use our shore intake. You know, we have multiple ways of drawing that water, because the best thing is to never draw it. Don't even bring it into the treatment plant. And, you know, what we've seen is that we're far enough away that it, you know, it's not an impact so far, but we're always monitoring and always being careful. So, you know, not making sure that we're monitoring our intake so that we can use the right one is the best thing to do, rather than even getting your drinking water in the first place.
So is the reverse osmosis 100%, or you have to treat it some other way as well?
No, I mean, if you were to use reverse osmosis, that would be effective, assuming you maintained your equipment and everything like that. It wouldn't be something that, you know, you'd want to do, though. Cost effectively, it's very expensive, you know, treatment process. The ideal thing is to not, you know, is to control it at the source.
But sometimes it's beyond our control, that's why. Okay, thank you.
If I just may add to that, part of the reason why our cribs, which is where our intake are 2 miles offshore, is to avoid exactly the problem that you are concerned about. And as Deputy Commissioner said, we've got multiple ways in which we control the intake, and we are monitoring the water constantly, and particularly for any kind of contaminants. And if we saw something approaching one of our intakes, we'd shut that down and go to a backup away from where the problem was. So there's lots of different ways in which we protect the water system, and that's one of the ways as well.
A lot of backup systems, that makes more sense. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you, Mayor.
We're heading towards the conclusion of a rather comprehensive process that we've developed here, because it's no secret that for any city, no matter how large or small, it's a huge decision.
Yes, of course.
So we're gonna obviously comb through it very finely in January. We'll have our discussions. I'm sure I know the answer, but there will be contact information available
Oh, yes, of course.
as we vet this. Should we, because I think you might have some members of the council that come up with questions over the next couple of days that will be pertinent to your system.
No, and we would welcome and encourage you to ask any additional questions. Look, this is a big decision, there's no question about it. It's something that we know you have invested a lot of time and energy. Your staff has been really exceptional in helping us make sure that we're as responsive as possible. And invariably, there will be questions that come up, and we're happy to address any of them, any concerns that you haven't thought about yet. As you really dig into the materials, be happy to come back down, talk on a Zoom, whatever is most convenient for the council. We will make that happen.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you. That's all I have.
Anything else?
We appreciate you coming down here.
My pleasure.
It means a lot to us.
No, it's, listen, as I said, I don't make idle comments, and
I'm an old
this
Chicago boy.
partnership is, I'm sorry?
I'm an old Chicago boy.
Oh, is that right?
There's another one. Old
Yes,
Chicago boy.
so I've heard. But no, this is really important to us, and I said, this has really opened up a lot of possibilities for us because of the way in which we have engaged with you and you with us. So we're grateful for the opportunity. I said from the very beginning, when can I go down and talk to the mayor and the council? Because that's how important it is to me personally. So thank you for your time and your consideration.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Happy holidays.
Be well, stay safe.
Thank you.
Good to see you again. All right.
Next on the agenda is a presentation and discussion by the city of Hammond, Indiana. Hammond Mayor Tom McDermott is here to present. It'll be just 1 minute, just transitioning.
Thank you, Jan, thank you. Yeah, yeah. You hit the spot.
Anybody else?
Maybe you changed his mind.
Hey, how are you? Good, thank you for coming. Welcome to Joliet.
Thank you, sir. Pleasure to be here. Tough to follow the great mayor of the city of Chicago, so thank you for letting me speak before you, Mr. Mayor. Hi, my name is Tom McDermott. I'm the mayor of the city of Hammond. I very much appreciate being here, talking in front of the Joliet City Council and before Mayor Odekirk, and I appreciate all the hard work that's gone into this very much. First, I want to introduce my team, if you don't mind. I have the CEO of the Hammond Water Company here, Mark McLaughlin. I have the Deputy Director of the Hammond Water Company, Jaime Prieto. I have the attorney for the Hammond Water Company, Shauna Levinson here. I have the Hammond Chief of Staff, Phil Talon, and Hammond Corporate Counsel, Kevin Smith. So thank you very much. A lot of people here did a lot of hard work, including Mayor Odekirk. Mayor, I've dealt with a number of entities that have had similar ideas to the idea you all have in Joliet, and you're the only one that ever took it to the finish line. So regardless of how this turns out, I just want to congratulate you, because I've been mayor of the city of Hammond since January 1st, 2004, 17 years, and I've seen a few iterations of this. And we could tell right off the bat that Joliet's was different. It was being driven by one person. I think it was that a lot of, congratulations go to you on that, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
We're here to help. I think that's really the summary. Why is Hammond involved in this? There's not a real large profit motive for the city of Hammond. There really isn't. Once this is up and running, we're talking a couple $100,000 a year for the next 99 years. I mean, and I realize that's a lot of money, but when you're running city government, that's not a lot of money. So for us, there's not a lot of profit motive here. I run a Hammond water utility. I've been running for 17 years. We have over 300,000 customers. We have a plant that draws 70 million gallons per day. I'm very cognizant of the fact you're looking at a 60 million gallon per day plant, which is real close to the plant we run. We're not here because we think that we're going to make a lot of money off of Joliet. We're not here because customers around Joliet may one day become our customers. If you accept our proposal, you're going to own the pipeline. You're going to own it from where the water comes in and gets all the way to Joliet. And if there are contaminants in the lake, I've been mayor for 17 years. We've never had one situation. not a single one. By the way, have you ever had this drink before? Aquafina? Well, it's bottled in Munster, Indiana, and they don't even have an extra filter on it. And that is Hammond water, almost exactly, dumped right into the bottle. So if you ever had one of these, you've had our water. This is our product. This is what would be coming to Joliet, which was shipped to Munster. We're not here other than we could help. We want to help. I see a great city. I'm very familiar with the city of Joliet. Our cities have a lot of common characteristics, and I'm fearful for you all because it's a very dire situation, which is why we're here. In 2030, your water needs, are questionable, and you're reacting appropriately. So anyway, we're here. Joliet's a lot like Hammond. We're both blue-collar communities, demographically diverse. We both have a history of industry and manufacturing. We've seen great jobs come over the years. We've seen great jobs go over the years. We both have a gaming industry. We've seen that rise and fall of that industry as well. I've told my council about 5 or 6 years ago, let's shift off of gaming and start focusing more on water, because that's our future. You see what's going on in the gaming industry right now. More and more casinos are being built. Now we got pool tabs and restaurants and things like that, and that revenue source is dropping, but the water revenue is obviously very important. I've been mayor for 17 years, and I've seen the benefits of geography and how that relates to water independence. That's the key to this proposal. I heard a councilman mention earlier about buying a car versus leasing a car. We've been talking about this proposal in similar manner, buying a house versus renting a house. Sure, renting a house may be a little bit cheaper in the short run. Sure, if something breaks in the rental house, somebody else gets to pay for it, right? But after 20 years of renting a house, what do you have at the end of 20 years? Nothing. But if you've been buying that house for the last 20 years, you probably own your house free and clear at that point. And when you're looking at revenue projections over the next 20 years and you're comparing the Chicago water proposal to the Hammond water proposal, it looks like they're real close in numbers. And they are over the next 20 years because you'll still be paying off the debt for building the pipeline. However, if you look over the entire length of the agreement, 99 years, it's not even close between the two proposals. Why? Because once you pay off the debt to build the pipeline and that goes away, you're not subject to the whims of anybody but Joliet. You are going to be in charge of your own water destiny. And if there are contaminants in Lake Michigan, you're going to have a brand new filtration plant right here in Joliet, staffed with Joliet employees, with PhDs, Joliet employees watching out for Joliet residents, and they'll be watching out for your own interests, and it'll be right here. The newest filtration plant on Lake Michigan will be right here in Joliet with Lake Michigan water. I just wonder how much of this is, with us, like I said, there is no possible way, regardless of how big Joliet gets with their water and their customers, there's no possible way that Hammond and Joliet will ever intersect. Our customer bases are separated by 50 miles. So this is really, when we were approached by the mayor, we said, sure, there's no possible way that we could ever come into competition with Joliet, and we want to help. I'm a fellow mayor, and I love this city. One of the first places I went to gamble, Joliet, Illinois. So the fact is, I view us as in a particular position where we could help, and that's what we're here for. We're not here for any profit motive whatsoever. Remember, Hammond's not going to sell you water like Chicago's proposing. That's no different than what Chicago does now to so many Illinois communities and what Hammond has done for decades also. We're giving you access to Lake Michigan 45 miles from your city. Most of our customers are former Chicago water customers. They get the same water at much cheaper prices. Like I said earlier, it's a difference between renting an apartment and owning your house. It's always better to own. You aren't just paying your landlord for your space, or in this case, paying Chicago for water. If you choose the Hammond alternative, you own your own water supply, and it appreciates in values and grows as an asset over time, just like owning your house. The most valuable asset owned by the city of Hammond, without a doubt, is the Hammond Water Company. I don't even know what the value is, and I wouldn't even want to place a value on it because there's no way we'd sell it. At the end of this, the cost of building the pipeline, I don't really look like, I realize it's a cost, and I realize that's something that Joliet residents are going to be dealing with for decades. However, that's an investment. At the end of the day, after you get done paying for the next 20, 30 years to the city of Chicago, you're still going to have those rates set by the city of Chicago. At the end of the day, under our proposal, once you pay off that debt from the transmission line, you set the rates. You're in charge of your own destiny, and that's worth something. And that's an asset that you own. Those payments you made are going someplace. At the end of the day, it'll be the Joliet Water Company. And Joliet will have communities, instead of approaching Mayor Lightfoot, Joliet will have communities approaching Joliet because they want to buy from you. They don't want to buy from Chicago. And Mayor Lightfoot, I'm a fan. I follow her on Facebook and Twitter. I think she's doing a great job, okay? However, who knows who the mayor of Chicago is in 30 years from now? And I agree, she's got a great outreach, and she's doing a great job of reaching out to the communities. But who knows who the mayor of Chicago will be 20 years from now? And who knows if that mayor has the same attitude towards the suburbs? All of us in here are elected officials. And if you have to pass any type of increase on your residents, who would you rather do it to? Somebody that doesn't live in your city or somebody that lives in your city? And I tell you what, even if the proposal goes up to 3% increase per year, when you're talking about a 100-year deal, that makes a dramatic difference on the price. You did hear, I put you may hear this in here, and you did hear this. An allegation which is patently false that the water supply for the southern end of Lake Michigan is somehow not as good as Chicago's, and that's simply not the case. Hammond's water is premium, so much that the Pepsi plant in Munster, Indiana uses water to make Aquafina bottled water that most of us in here have probably had, maybe even once today. During my time as mayor, and in anybody on my team's memory, there has never been an issue with Hammond's water, not once. Chicago's water plant existed for decades in the shadow of South Works, by the way, and it's only 3 miles from our intake. They're real close to each other. We're at similar depths, similar amounts, similar distance away from the beach. You know, if there ever is stuff that happens in the lake, we're so far down and so far out that it's probably not going to bother us anyway. But I've been mayor 17 years, and not one day have we had to close the intakes because of anything that went on in the lake. By the way, for those of you who aren't familiar with Indiana geography, Hammond is the northwest corner of the city. I literally ride my bike to Chicago. We touch Chicago. So a lot of the heavy industry in the region is to our east. You know, it's out towards Porter County. It's out towards Gary. Gary's to our east. We're closer to Joliet. I'm sure you've reviewed the numbers, and yes, Hammond's alternative is more expensive, for now. The question, though, is what happens when that expense is paid off? The comparison study shows that the cash flow for the Indiana alternative becomes significantly lower than the Chicago alternative after the debt service is paid off in 2065. In fact, the graph in your study, which is amazing, by the way, that was done in-house. I'm mayor for a long time. When I saw that, I thought for sure you paid some engineering firm to do it. Allison, I think that was outstanding. I did want to point that out. It's really amazing what your team did, Mayor. High quality product. But on page 20, it shows that the Hammond alternative cost falls off a cliff downward in 2065, while the Chicago alternative keeps climbing and will forever. By 2080, you know, our grandkids are going to be around, our kids and grandkids, which is what we're talking about. By 2080, the Chicago alternative will cost $99 million a year to the city of Joliet, and the Hammond alternative costs just $39 million. $60 million cheaper in 2080 once the debt falls off. And in 2080, once the debt falls off, I predict that you will have so many pressures on the Joliet plant that other communities will want, you'll be probably talking about a second plant. You'll have so many people coming to you. And that's really the point. Gaining control of your water independence for the future of Joliet. There is no long-term risk to the city by choosing the Hammond alternative. As the study points out on page 22, just a small increase in the escalation rate of Chicago water rates from just 2 to 3% makes a 25% difference in the 50-year cost of water to Joliet. Since a lot of discussion took place about whether or not our water is safe, I again reiterate that nothing has ever happened in the 17 years I've been mayor. Most of the staff that I work with in the water company goes back 40 years. Nothing has ever happened in that 40-year time frame for anybody that we talk to. But I'd like to point out that our intake site is approximately 3 miles south of Chicago's intake. Next, we collect samples daily, and we test for turbidity, chlorine, residuals, and pH. We've never been off standard. We submit those results regularly to IDEM. IDEM has never found the Hammond water plant in violation of any standards for raw or tap water in the 40 years that we checked. We've been never told to add anything or change any treatments to remedy bad water. We use the same basic chemicals as any surface water treatment plant uses: chlorine, aluminum sulfate, fluoride, zinc orthophosphate, and ammonia. In fact, Nick Gornick from the Department Director for Planning, for the city of Joliet has tested our water. I'm very confident in the results, although I did not see the final results. You could ask Nick, he tested our water, and I'm very confident in how it turned out, because it's never turned out bad for us, so why would it suddenly turn out? From a level of control perspective, there is no comparison between the two alternatives. You will have a partner for the next 99 years and beyond in Indiana. Indiana state government will support this effort, and Hammond will always be a partner in any regulatory or legislative effort necessary to see this project through. Hammond will also partner with helping Joliet acquire the property it needs for its pumps in Hammond, and that includes helping acquire land by eminent domain if needed. That's part of the agreement. I will be your champion in Indiana. I'd like to also point out, we have a number of Illinois communities. This, by the way, this isn't, and I'm sure you're aware of this, this is not the first pipeline built from Hammond to an Illinois community. In the 1970s, city of Chicago Heights built a pipeline from Hammond to Chicago Heights, and now Chicago Heights is a regional hub for Lake Michigan water and Hammond's water partner, and they buy water from us on the cheap, and they sell it to their customers around their area. So we've done this before. I wasn't mayor, obviously, in the 70s, but it's been done before, what you guys are talking about, although the magnitude of this project is probably twice as long as what Chicago Heights did. We also sell water to Calumet City and to Lansing and to their surrounding communities. Again, I'm here because I want Hammond and Joliet to become partners. We are cities that are similar. Neither of us have the magnificent mile. Neither of us have the Cubs or the White Sox, but what we do have are residents and city governments that have the ability to partner to ensure what Joliet wants, what Hammond already has. Security and knowing that it has water supply that it controls and that cannot be taken away or overcharged because it has direct access to Lake Michigan. I hope we can become partners in this once-in-a-lifetime partnership. I am available to answer any questions. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. I just want to point out, I think we met first about a year and a half ago. Our staff came to Hammond, and I want to thank you for the hard work that you've done and your staff has done with the city of Joliet. We were serious about this, and you've definitely helped us get to this point. So thank you for your efforts and for the efforts of your staff. The one question I have, you mentioned selling to Chicago Heights and Calumet City and Lansing. Have you experienced, or has Hammond experienced any difficulties crossing state lines in these transactions? And if you have, what were they?
Well, no, sir, not since I was mayor. I imagine if there were any difficulties, it was experienced in the 70s, but I never heard about anything like that. And believe me, I have lawyers constantly looking at the interstate nature of this transaction. And but no, we've never had any problems like that from IDEM, from the state of Indiana. No, sir.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
Yes, I have one.
No, not bad. Go ahead. Yeah.
Piggybacking on what the mayor just asked, is the cities in Joliet, the cities in Illinois that you're selling to, this is refined or raw?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. No, it's not raw. And I appreciate you asking that. It's filtered water that we sell to all of our Illinois customers. You would be the first customer with raw water only, sir.
There's nobody that's taking raw, would be the first to take raw?
Not from Hammond. No, sir. Good question. I appreciate you pointing that out.
Dan?
My question is, when you sold the water to, or not sold the water, but to Chicago Heights, isn't there another entity out there that controls Lake Michigan water that there was an issue with for Indiana to bring the water to Chicago Heights that has control over Lake Michigan water?
No, I know that it's regulated on, we have a regulation on us, and it's something that Joliet will have to go through regardless of what route you take. But to draw water from the Lake Michigan, you have to go through, a compact, which regulates how much. Like, we are only allowed to draw 70 million gallons a day. Right now, on a day like today, we probably only draw 35 million gallons, to be honest with you. It's more in the summer you have to worry about that, but
So there was no other issue back then,
I don't believe so.
or even now?
No, I can tell you since I've been mayor, we've had disagreements. Mayor Gonzalez and I had a couple go-arounds it was more about the rates, but it had nothing to do with the issue of whether we could sell water to an Illinois community. It had nothing to do with that, ma'am. It had to do with mostly about the rates we charge. And we worked that out, in fact, so well that we have two different contracts with Chicago Heights. One contract more for domestic water in Chicago Heights, and the other allowing Mayor Gonzalez, the mayor of Chicago Heights, to market that water to other communities. So we're partners, straight up, with the mayor of Chicago Heights.
Okay. It was a question that was brought to me, and I
I'm
wanted to
glad you
ask it
asked,
to you.
ma'am. I have no problem answering any. Like I said, this isn't a huge profit for Hammond if it happens. I hope it does happen, because I want to help. And if it doesn't, I'm gonna wish you well, and I'm still gonna come over here and have a good time in your city, okay? And we wish you the best. I want you guys to fix this problem, okay? But if you choose us, I promise we'll be champs for you. And if you don't, I'm gonna wish you well. Mayor, I think you got a great mayor, and you got a great council, and obviously got a great engineering staff, so I hope it works out well regardless.
Thank you.
Allison, did you want to chime in on that?
Yeah, I'll let Barb Adams answer that question specifically related to, withdrawing water from the lake. So Barb.
There we are. Okay, thank you. The ability of communities in Illinois to withdraw water from Lake Michigan comes from getting an allocation from the state of Illinois Department of Natural Resources. There's a long history to the use of Lake Michigan water that goes back to Supreme Court fights many, many years ago. But the upshot is that in Illinois, there's a Supreme Court decree that says Illinois can take 3,200 cubic feet per second of water out of the lake. And the State Department of Natural Resources is in charge of allocating that. So everybody that Mayor McDermott sells to in Illinois, they all have one of those permits, and Joliet is seeking the same.
Thank you, ma'am, for explaining that to me. And I could tell you from my seat, it's a lot easier to sell water in Illinois because of that reason than it is to sell water in Indiana, which takes like an act of Congress, literally. If I want to sell water in my own home state, it's much harder than it is if I want to sell water in Joliet or to Chicago Heights. And we're on the border, so we just sell water over here. We're trying to.
Welcome, Mayor.
Thank you, sir.
My name's Larry.
Thanks, Cal.
I'm a councilman here. Greg, obviously, or they would have been chasing me off the dais already. I want to clarify, because it's been bannered about, you guys do sell water to Chicago Heights.
Yes, sir. Filtered water. We sell filtered water to Chicago Heights. All of our customers. You would be the first Hammond water customer with raw water.
And when you said that, I want to make sure that our citizens watching, and you're not selling us that raw water. You're helping us come through your community to put our own straw into the lake.
Absolutely.
And then do it. So
We're going to be your water partner, which includes, because you would have, if we weren't cooperating, you would have trouble once you got to the state line of how to get your pipe to Lake Michigan, right? So that's our job, is to help you get it there, and obviously we're going to live with the pipeline in our city, but it's for the greater good, okay?
Well, and the way I look at it, then obviously you are the main wholesaler right now with an intake in your area.
Yes, sir.
We would be the second one
Yes, sir.
with a very comparable allotment.
You would have
We're granted.
very similar size. I bet you on a daily basis, we'd be pulling about the same amount of water from Lake Michigan.
So as
Our plant is
providers-
bigger than the one you're talking about, but like I said, today we're only pulling 30 million gallons. So it really depends on how many customers we had.
Well, and when people hear us talk about partnerships, as two large providers, should we go this route, there would be synergies between the two providers where they would work together in a partnership, solving problems in the cribs, things of that nature.
Absolutely, sir.
Okay.
Absolutely. And by the way, we would know if there was a problem. Like I said, it's never happened since I've been mayor, but if we did have a problem, we would know about it before you guys did. And I imagine we have a great working relationship, and we're contacting you like, hey, we got a situation, and we all work together to solve it. Absolutely, sir.
And how many customers do you have?
Over 300,000.
I mean, as far as other communities, I'm
I
sorry.
sell to Calumet City, I sell to Chicago Heights, I sell to Lansing. This is just Illinois communities. Lansing's in discussions with Chicago Heights sells to the communities around them, but Chicago Heights is our customer. And then in Indiana, we're the largest city in Northwest Indiana, not as large as your city though, Mayor. 81,000 people live in my city. I sell to Whiting, I sell to Highland, I sell to Dyer, I sell to Griffith, I sell to Munster.
And that keeps the rates down for your community.
No, actually, sir, we just recently did something, but this wouldn't affect you guys at all. We just recently did something where I thought it was only fair that all of us pay the same rate, and the wholesale communities all pay the same rate. And then once the water gets to the community like Highland sets their own retail rates, but the wholesale rate's the same in Indiana.
Thank you.
And it's way cheaper in Chicago, by the way, way cheaper. It's the same water, and it's a lot cheaper. And I realize I don't have a lot of PhDs working 24/7, and I don't have fancy presentations, but there's a reason why all of our customers used to be customers of Chicago Water. There's a reason. It's the same water. I mean.
Well, this, a question I have. So how far apart would the Joliet site be from your site, sir?
Good question.
Yeah.
Excuse me. So the site that we've looked at for the new Joliet intake would be in Hammond, towards the border between Hammond and Whiting. So, you know, it's probably less than half a mile from Hammond's water plant.
Yeah, it's right, and it's right by Wolf Lake for comparison purposes, which is right on the border. It comes south of Wolf Lake, and then it looks like it, you know, I'm sure there was a lot of thought put into the path out, but it leaves our city right around Gosselin, it looks like.
Now, all the communities you're selling filtered water to are by far closer to you than Joliet is, right?
Or closer to the pipeline that was built by Chicago Heights, sir. We have a lot of
The question
customers.
makes me ask, why wouldn't we buy filtered water from you if it's cheaper than Chicago? If you're selling filtered water, it's cheaper than Chicago is.
We would have a lot of trouble getting the filtered water here, because it's like you have to
Just too far?
Right, Chicago, and that's the advantage Chicago has. They would literally just link up to you, and you'd be buying water from Chicago, right?
So how much closer to Chicago than you?
Chicago, I think their entire pipeline, the link up was 20 miles shorter than that? Yeah, 30,
Chicago-
50, something like that. 20
Allison?
miles
Yeah.
closer.
The Chicago pipeline, the distance from the southwest pump station to Joliet is about 31 miles. From the lakefront side in Hammond, it's about 46 miles. So it's about 15 miles further to get all the way to the lake in Hammond.
Thank you.
Yes.
And Mayor?
Yes, sir.
This Mayor. And Mayor, I would also suggest that 70 million gallons a day, our needs as they grow too, would eat too much of that allotment up without getting into it.
We would have trouble bringing your community on just because we'd be fine in December, January, February, and then when summer rolls around, we'd have problems. So we couldn't do that, even if we wanted to. But raw water, you know, it's just a pipeline going through our city. And it's a small nominal payment every year to the city of Hammond. And once that debt is paid off from the pipeline, you guys are in total independence. And I don't want this to be like an attack on Mayor Lightfoot. I like Mayor Lightfoot, like I said, and I trust Mayor Lightfoot, and I'm a neighbor to Mayor Lightfoot. She's not gonna be the mayor of Chicago forever. Listen, even if she has a long run, she's there 15 years-ish, 20 years, but like, whoever the mayor is after that, that's the person we gotta worry about, and who the mayor is after that, that's the person we gotta worry about. And your plan is water independence. And I mean, you're faced with this catastrophe coming in 2030, and you gotta spend a lot of money. Why would you wanna link up to a system where they've proven in the past, no offense to Chicago Water, but they've proven in the past that they charge high rates, sometimes indiscriminately, and a lot of their customers leave and come to us. And you guys could bypass all that. You spend a little bit more money up, a lot of money more up front, but when your kids and grandkids are growing up in Joliet, they'll thank you for it. They'll have cheap water, and you'll have a lot of customers coming to Joliet Water. And by the way, maybe there's a little bit with the people working for the water department, maybe there's a little bit of, you know, wow, if we get Joliet, we can get all of Joliet's neighbors too, and all these new customers of Chicago Water. I'm sure there's some of that going on. You have none of that coming from us. If you don't pick us, I think you made a mistake personally, but I'm gonna wish you well. I'm gonna do everything I can. If Mayor Odekirk calls up and says, can you help me with this? I'll do everything I can to help. Because there's not a lot of profit motive, but I tell you, I think for the city of Joliet, it's just a lot of upside if you choose our alternative.
Just real quickly, and I don't know if you can answer this or not, but you did mention a lot of the suburbs around, you know, Chicago Heights, Lansing. I'm curious, do you happen to know where Homewood gets their Chicago water?
I love Homewood. We want Homewood eventually.
So who-
Homewood gets it from Chicago.
They get it from Chicago?
Yeah.
Okay.
And Homewood is in discussions with Hammond Water.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
Homewood, Flossmoor, Olympia
Mhm.
Fields. And by the way, I would be shocked 5 years from now if we didn't have them as customers. I'd be shocked. And by the way, they currently get their water from the city of Chicago. They pay higher rates. They'd come in, they'd pay lower rates, and they'd get the same water. And we're in discussions as we speak. And I'm sure Mayor Lightfoot will be appearing in Homewood and Flossmoor to try to stop that as well, but.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. And if I had my druthers, Hammond would be building another filtration plant within the next 5 to 10 years, and we'd keep offering the same water to the south side cities of Chicago at a lower price.
Sherry?
My question is just in regards to the comment that you're making about the minimal profit that you'll be making from us, is this, we'll be paying you for leasing land that we're going through, or what will we be paying you?
I didn't draw the contract, but I could tell you, ma'am, already, I don't know how much we spent, but it's been fairly significant. We had to cooperate with Joliet and all that, so I have costs that we've already poured in. Kevin, maybe, do you want to speak a little bit to that? I know Kevin was the main lawyer that was negotiating that part of the deal. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure, Mayor, I think you and Allison chime in, I guess.
Yeah, sure, we can all talk about the deal.
So The money that the mayor's, and by the way, good evening, Mayor, Council. My name is Kevin Smith. I'm Corporation Counsel for the City of Hammond. The fee that the mayor is talking about is what's called a volumetric fee. It's actually very insignificant in the whole scheme of things, because as you all know, the numbers that you're talking about is hundreds of millions of dollars for this project. I think upwards of $1 billion, depending on the choice you make. And what the volumetric fee says is once you guys tap in, once Joliet taps in 2032, I think, does that sound about right? 2032, 2033, that it's based on the average annual millions of gallons a day. So let's say your average is 30 million gallons a day for the year. That's the average, right? You'd multiply that times 5,000. That equals $150,000. That's what we get every year. That's it. And there's also another fee of, I think, a base of 110 a year. So our total, you would be paying Hammond $260,000 a year total. After your debt's all paid off, that's the amount. If you're up at 60, if the average is 60 million gallons a day, multiply that times 5,000. That's 300,000 plus the other 110, 410,000 a year. Is that my math right, Allison? Or?
Yeah, so when we, structured the payment terms, we were looking to, compensate Hammond for the ongoing, I guess, burden of having our pipeline, in their community. So really, it's, compensating them for the use of that right-of-way that they could otherwise use for, their own pipelines or other public purposes. So we felt that we, negotiated a very fair deal, to compensate them for allowing us that access in their community. There's also one-time payments upfront that are also a component of the contract, and I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, those total about $8 million. In addition to reimbursing Hammond, as they mentioned, for the costs, associated with, assisting us with, the engineering and then their legal fees associated with that. So that would be the major cost components for the project with Hammond.
Thanks, Allison. Can I say one more thing, Mr. Mayor?
Sure.
There's one thing I think you guys are doing very right. There's a lot of things you're doing very right, but one thing that I've only been involved in 2 pipelines. The first one was Chicago Heights. I took over after the fact. But I could tell you one thing that they did wrong, that you guys are not doing wrong, is Chicago Heights only had a 40-year deal with the city of Hammond at that time. And what happens after the 40-year deal came up, they came back to renegotiate, and we had to renegotiate a new contract, okay? Your deal is 99 years. I mean, none of us are gonna have to worry about that, unless we get really lucky, right? But that's the thing, it's a 99-year deal. So whoever's sitting in your seats in 99 years and whoever's sitting in my seat in 99 years is gonna sit down and work out the next 25 years, which I think are, also built into the contract as well, right? 99 plus 25. But we're not gonna have to worry about this for the rest of our careers. And I think you guys are doing it the right way, personally. And like I said, Mayor, I've seen a few different, in fact, I was listening to public comment before the meeting started, and it was at Southland Water Agency spoke, and they were talking about a great alternative that Joliet's not paying attention to. I just wanna point something out. If you're gonna get to Lake Michigan, you either got to go through Chicago to get there, and I doubt Mayor Lightfoot's going to be very accommodating to allowing another straw to go in and compete with the Chicago Water Company, or you have to go through Hammond. And we're not going to be that accommodative either. The only person I've talked to about this project is Mayor Odekirk in the city of Joliet. Nobody else has talked to us, and I hear that the Southland Agency is talking about getting their intake through Gary. I'm trying to figure out my math here. I'm trying to figure out geography. I'm not sure how they're going to get to Gary without going through the city of Hammond, unless they're coming from the south. So the fact is, Mayor Odekirk, you're the only city we're talking to about this. You're the only city that has access across our city into the lake, and it's the first time in my career that anybody's had access across Hammond into Lake Michigan. You're the only person. I've had a lot of conversations. This is the only time I've ever appeared before a body and talked about this project.
Mike?
I think you might have answered the question. I had the same question as Sherry did, but like, what is the advantage to Hammond having us as a customer?
Up front, I know that there's some cost built in. They talked about, I forgot the exact numbers, but there's some money built in up front. And then after that's paid, I think most of the money is paid up in the first 10 years. Is that true? After that, $300,000-400,000 a year, whatever that calculation works out to be. That's it for 99 years. And we could talk in 99 years, but like I said, I don't think you and I are gonna have to worry about that. No, thanks, you look great.
I don't know about, yeah, I don't think so.
Anything else?
No.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Well, thank you very much.
Thanks to the
Appreciate you
Joliet
coming
City
out.
Council. I'm looking forward to working with you. If you have any questions, please reach out to my team. And Allison, thank you for all the help, and to your staff. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, sir.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Good night.
You know, Mayor, if you don't, may I, when I leave?
Yes.
Oh, it's nothing. We had two very, very good presenters tonight with two very, very good teams. But it comes down to what's best for
Well,
Joliet.
there'll be a
But
lot
I
of
wanted to
questions, I'm
acknowledge.
Sure, what their mayor and Larry, I mean, there'll be a lot of questions that will be asked.
Right.
The one that I asked, can I ask Allison one right now?
Yeah, sure.
So the gentleman alluded to that when Mayor Lightfoot's gone and another mayor's there, and you're gonna be, a new master is gonna be in town, okay, and that's gonna change, okay? And then they can do whatever. My question is, because my naivete, when you write a contract like tomorrow with Mayor Lightfoot, would you not grandfather in the fact that no other person could change that rate on you? I mean, that'd be foolish of us to enter an agreement with somebody with something, a situation that's fluid as politics, right? So would there not be a legal contract that says for the next 99 years, no matter who the mayor is, you can't change this, you can't change that, unless I'm not understanding law at all?
Yeah, so the preliminary agreement that we've negotiated with Chicago, which they've approved, is for it would be for a 50-year term, then that we would enter into this.
That's right, who the mayor is.
agreement. Yes, and I can have Ms. Barbara Adams again speak about, if a new mayor came in 10 years, they would not have the ability to then,
They can't
change that
renegotiate.
contract.
So that was somewhat misleading, I think, alluding to that. And that's what I have for you, is if you're going to buy a used car or lease a car, okay, is there any more negotiation? Like, can we go back to Mayor Lightfoot and say, by the way, we have a little better offer, can you lower this a little bit more, and can you extend it? Can we pay you 3% less and get it for 75 more years? I mean, is there, nothing's final yet, right? Can't we go back and say, by the way, can you sweeten your deal a little bit, Mayor?
Yeah, so what we've negotiated with Chicago is that the rate is based on a cost of service. And so based on the cost of service, it's based on actually their cost to provide that service to us using their existing infrastructure. So it's not that they said, we're gonna charge you, $3 and there was no basis for it. And so actually, as part of the agreement, we would go back, if we selected that alternative, we'd go back and do a complete audit of that cost of service and then negotiate, and then determine what that rate would be based on that audited cost of
For
service.
sure, it's not gonna be somebody who's mayor, right? That agreement would last for 50 or 60 years, however long you sign that agreement for, doesn't matter who the mayor is, right?
That's correct.
So that was, okay, I thought so, but again, it made it sound like we'd be at the mercy of different masters as they came in, so.
Allison,
Oh, yeah,
I'm
go
sorry.
ahead.
Yeah, go ahead, Mike.
Allison, that can be negotiated too. I mean, 50 years, if you talked about 50, we could go 75 if that's what it took, or whatever, couldn't we?
Yeah, so
Or ask for it.
I'll have Barb speak to that because there is a basis for the 50 years because one thing is if we were looking to form a water commission, there is some restrictions on the length of water purchase contracts as part of that. And also just when you're thinking about this, in 50 years, we could potentially want to make some modifications that could be to our benefit. So there is with something like a water purchase contract, there might be some reasons why we would not want to have, a contract that's that long. But Barb, if you could speak on the contract length.
Sure, I'd be happy to. One of the major concepts that you're talking about is having a regional system, which means creating a water commission. Water commission is governed by specific statutes, and there are some limitations in that statute that have led us to conclude, at least at this point, that we think the maximum term would be 50 years at a time. If Joliet and Chicago were just to do a deal as home rule units, it could be longer than that. But we have in the discussions with Chicago, we've had some discussion about the fact that we're going to need to go to Springfield for some legislative adjustments. And we've talked about whether the term length would be one of those items that we would discuss and consider. But Allison is correct that you want to balance when you're doing a long-term arrangement. How long do you want to be committed, and at what point do you think the parties want to sort of reopen at least certain issues?
there's a balance to that.
Does the Water Commission have the authority to make the decisions on, at that level, or does it have to come back to the city for council approval?
You're talking about.
I'm sorry. Does the commission have the authority to make decisions and set, different contract terms, or does that have to come back to the city?
At this point, the city is negotiating this agreement. We don't know yet exactly when the commission will be created, so it may be that Joliet will approve that contract, and then when the commission is formed, it will accept assignment from you of that contract. But the commission then ultimately will make other decisions about contracts. Everybody will be represented there, and that's one of the things we're going to adjust the legislation, we think, a little bit about.
Thank you.
From that.
Just so I'm clear, are we talking about the commission that's gonna be formed here in Joliet or the Chicago Advisory Committee?
The commission that we would form in Will County.
Because part of the Chicago proposal would be that they form an advisory committee and Joliet would have a seat on
Yes,
that.
yes, that's correct.
So Allison, so if we choose the Indiana choice, we own our own structure, but that would be built in Hammond, right? We would be drawing raw water out of Hammond's lake, out of Lake Michigan through Hammond's land, but the actual pumping would be done in Hammond?
Yes, that's correct. So Joliet would own all of the infrastructure that would be
Even though
built.
it's in Hammond, Indiana, we'd own the
We'd own
structure.
it,
So,
yes.
but basically, our employees then that would work there would be Joliet employees
Yes.
working in Hammond.
And we would not, employees would visit that site on a daily basis, but we would not have people, stationed there full-time. It would be a pumping station that would just pump the water to Joliet. So the treatment would be done in Joliet.
The filtration plant will be here in Joliet?
Yes, that's correct.
So the main work is done in the filtration plant, with the massive number of employees would be in Joliet's geographical territory.
Yes, that's correct.
But there still would require some people at the raw pumping station in Hammond, right? That would work for Joliet?
Yes, that's correct. And then we would also incorporate monitoring so that we would be able to view have video cameras as well as, the ability to view all that operations so that we'd be able to operate, facilities from Joliet.
Lots of moving parts.
I do just have three, I know we're right up here at 7:30. I have 3 slides just to kind of wrap things up. Again, for anyone who's watching, please encourage anyone you know to participate in our online virtual event. We have extended that public comment period to January 19th, and we do really want people to comment. You can comment multiple ways. You can go to the website, which is rethinkwaterjoliet.org, fill out our comment form. You can email rethinkwater@joliet.gov, or you just call 815-724-4220 and make a comment that way. So I know you are all eager to receive that input from the public. Our roadmap here, again, tonight we, presented this comparison document. Again, it's, 16 pages, so I think we really have boiled it all down to the major points with these bottom lines. So encourage you all to, read through that, call me if you have any questions. And, I know Hammond and Chicago are both receptive to any additional questions you might have. We'll definitely be talking a lot in early January. And then we have set a special city council meeting for January 28th, at which point we would be having on the agenda the selection of the alternative water source.
Now, does Joliet have a committee formed? Is this your committee here? And are they going to be able to make recommendations based on your analysis, or are you going to just stay out of it?
Yes, so, we have been, meeting, and we will be meeting individually with each of you to go over, one-on-one, the overall parameters of the project. And I do just want to clarify one thing. I got way too much credit from Mayor McDermott. Teresa and Joe are not my staff. They are, project managers at their own right, and have been fantastic to work with. So a lot of credit to them. So
And
just,
also one other thing, Herb, in response to that, there was an environmental commission that is still active, but it had been inactive for some time. About 3 years ago, we re-engaged them. I made appointments. They studied all of this and helped the council narrow it down to 5 sources of water, different, the Kankakee River, Des Plaines River, Illinois River, Lake Michigan.
So they've brought us down to these two already.
Well, we ultimately, a year ago, we made the vote to get down to Lake Michigan, but the committee prior to that did a lot of the heavy work. That's what we think to begin the meeting. They met countless hours going through all the data to get us to the 5, present the options. The council voted to get to the 2, and then the next vote will be either Chicago or Hammond.
Well, Mayor,
Thank you for the update. I didn't know that.
Mayor, if I might add, actually, I believe the commission brought it down to the Hammond. Remember, there was discussion and a vote to add Chicago in, to be looked at side by side.
Right, it was Lake Michigan, Hammond
Right.
initially, right?
Right.
And again, I know I'm interrupting you. A couple of months ago, I complimented Sherry Reardon, Councilwoman Reardon, for insisting that we keep both options on the table. I think tonight you can see why, because these are both solid, good options for the city of Joliet.
And again, without simplifying it, like we said earlier, and even the mayor from Hammond said, it's like the difference between renting a house and buying a house. And there's plus and minus on both. Once you own the house, something goes wrong, you gotta pay for it. You know, if something breaks down, it's major, that, I gotta put new HVAC in, new heater, and once you own it, it's yours forever.
Yes, as the mayor said, we are fortunate to have 2 very good options, so we are not going to be making a wrong decision. So I think everyone in Joliet can be confident that, we are gonna be able to provide reliable, high quality, sustainable water source in 2030, regardless of which option we select. So, this is our overall schedule. Going into next year, we have a lot of work to do, which is why it's important that we make this decision in January. We're gonna do that preliminary design and then move into doing all the heavy lifting with the engineering work, start issuing the first contracts in, 2024, 2025, and, get the construction done so that by 2030, we do have the water flowing at the taps of, all of our residents. So that is a conclusion of the presentation. I know there's been a lot of questions ongoing, but if there's been any other questions, we can answer them now. Or, please feel free to reach out to me at any time. If you have questions that are specifically for Chicago, or Hammond, let me know. We've worked with them a lot and understand that both would be great partners for the city.
Yes. Go ahead,
I just wanted to ask you one more question as far as the timeline. The mayor from Hammond, he mentioned 2032. Is there some difference in the timeline?
He mentioned 23, that's related to the payment for some of the annual payments. So that was more of a contractual timeframe than it was for when we'd be accessing the water.
And one last question, we'll let you go into any late, but Mayor Lightfoot alluded to exactly how many employees it took to run their facility. Do we know how many employees it would take to run a much smaller, ours would obviously be a much smaller scale. How many employees are anticipating would be required by Joliet to run our own system if we choose to go that route?
Yes, I'll ask Joe. Joe did a staffing analysis for that, so I'll let
And how
Joe
readily
Johnson.
available are PhDs and people that know about water and things like that? I mean,
No, it's an excellent question. So looking at the size of the plant that Joliet would require, we've estimated it would take about, I'm trying to get the number right, 14 new staff would be added to Joliet's water utility, but probably 9 to 10 operators for the water treatment plant, another 4 to 5 people for maintenance and running equipment. And then in addition, we would transition, currently Joliet has licensed water operators who run the existing well and groundwater treatment systems here in Joliet. We would hope to transition those people over into roles in the utility as well. As a data point, I know some of you participated in these virtual tours with Central Lake County JAWA this week. That's an independent agency, right? They provide, I think they pump about 50 million gallons per day of water. They have a total staff of 25 people in that utility. So that's a data point of about where we would expect this to be.
thank you. And I've already been told 10 times, how much water do we need a day, Allison, Joliet?
So, currently we're pumping about 18 million gallons a day. And so, we've projected that into the future, but that's what we're currently pumping.
Thank you very much for your time. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mayor?
Yes.
I have a request for a very brief closed session.
Okay.
First is public comments. No one registered to speak, and no one is here to speak this evening under public comment. With that, is there a motion to go into closed session to discuss personnel, collective bargaining, land acquisition or conveyance, pending or threatened litigation, after which the meeting will be adjourned?
Second.
Motion seconded to approve, Councilwoman Gavin. Aye. Councilman Hug.
Aye.
Councilman Landy.
Aye.
Councilman Morris.
Aye.
Councilman Mudrin.
Aye.
Councilwoman Coleman.
Aye.
Councilwoman Reardon.
Aye.
Councilman Turk.
Aye.
Motion carries.